This is what understanding is. Now I will give you an example. It is 1 o'clock. 1 to 2 is the lunch time. Actually, 1 to 1:30 is the lunch time. But because of the grace of the authorities and practical concerns, it has been dragged towards to 1 to 2. Okay, anyway, it is 1 o'clock. You came to my seat and you saw that my seat is empty, chair is khali. So you got one information is that Biresh Kumar is not in his seat. Then you saw the clock. It is 1:05. 1:05. This is second information you got. Then you saw that my helmet is also missing. It is also not there. This is the third information. And when you came out, you saw that my motorcycle is not in the place where I have parked in the morning. So 5 informations you got. Now, if you were able to conclude that he has left for lunch, then you have understood the situation. And if you concluded that you might have left for cinema, then you are wrong. So you gather the information, but you fail to successfully relate one information with other informations. So this is what one day-to-day example I have given for understanding. However, the perfect process to reveal the understanding of an individual is, we have discussed already, translation, interpretation, and extrapolation. So that is it. But this is the day-to-day example of what comprehension or understanding is. That ability to successfully relate, not arbitrarily relate, successfully relate one information with other. Okay, right. So this is, so we are talking about the difference between educational objectives and instructional objectives. Both root of both the listing is same, that is taxonomy of educational objectives. But being derived or streamed from the same root doesn't mean that both are the same. Ganga and Yamuna both come out from the same Himalaya, but Ganga is different, Yamuna is different, even color of water is different. So educational objectives are stated in the taxonomical terms. The instructional objectives are stated in observable behavioral terms. Educational objectives are fixed for the whole course of study. Whole course of study, educational objectives are decided for the whole course of study, but the instructional, second difference, instructional objectives are decided for each chapter or maybe each period or class. One chapter may not be covered in one class, one lecture. So there may be breakup, 2-3 lectures are needed to cover one chapter. So that's why they say that instructional objectives are basically meant for every chapter, maybe every class, every lecture. Instructional objectives can be revised and modified by the teacher. Revision and modification of educational objectives is beyond the purview of a teacher. But one thing is common is both are predetermined in nature. If you, unless you predetermine, goal means predetermined. Goal or objective itself means that it is predetermined. Examples of stating these objectives. Educational objectives. How to state or how it is stated. After undergoing the course, the student shall be able to know the nature, structure, contents, and objectives of this discipline. Understand the relationship between different components of this course. He will be or she will be able to apply the theories and principles, rules and provisions of this course in real life situations, analyze the problems and gray areas pertaining to this course, so on and so forth. So this is how educational objectives are stated. Now, how to write instructional objectives? After studying this chapter, the student shall be able to, and examples I have taken from grammar part, identify and separate nouns from pronouns, verb from adverbs, and both from adjectives. Identify and separate. Will be able to identify and separate. Convert a masculine word into feminine and vice versa. Search synonyms and antonyms for a given word. Make sentences by the given words, using the given words. Break combined words as per the Sandhi rules, So in the next slide, I have mentioned that all these words in italic are observable behavioral terms. You see, educational objectives are not observable. They are 100%, barring some exception of application and value judgment. They are mostly in abstract in nature. They function inside the brain. And we have just discussed that if anything is not observable, it is not measurable. To make the educational objectives, means knowledge, understanding, and application, analysis, synthesis, etc., observable, these instructional objectives and the terminology for fixing, listing instructional objectives were devised. Now, identify and separate. If a student is identifying the nouns in a sentence or in a passage, you can observe. Now it became the observable behavior. Now his or her knowledge about the noun words of that particular language, now it can be observed while he or she is identifying. While he or she is separating from nouns from pronouns and verbs from adverbs, it can be observed. If they are converting masculine into feminine and vice versa, it can be observed. So, instructional objectives are stated in observable behavioral terms because we have to evaluate them. Note, all the italic words represent some observable behavior. These are also known as action verbs. Some experts suggest that instructional objectives can be stated in taxonomical terms also. That is also true. I have seen in the Grunland's book. Grunland, to my view, is one of the authorities of taxonomy or any kind of Western publication on education system. So he has also accepted the fact that although the general rule is that instructional objectives should be stated in observable behavioral terms, but there is a provision, there is an exception that it can be stated in taxonomical terms also, but the condition is, and in the case of higher education. And you see, instructional objectives are also known as action verbs. We are inching towards a very practical aspect of our whole exercise, that is item writing. Kindly, you just give some extra emphasis and focus on that. Instructional objectives are also known as action verbs. You leave this point number 3. This is extra. At the time of testing, we use the same action verbs to frame a question. At the time of teaching, we use instructional objectives as reference points, as the skills or abilities to be developed inside the students. And at the time of testing, we use the same wordings that were known as instructional objectives. Now they will be known as action verbs at the time of framing a question, means at the time of testing, because one more theory of evaluation says that what is being taught, only that is to be tested. आपने जो पढ़ाया है उसी का इम्तिहान लेंगे ना, तो हाँ, तो इसीलिए what were the instructional objectives decided at the time of teaching any chapter, any book, any subject, any skill, anything. At the time of testing, you have to use those instructional objectives only as reference points to frame a question. If you have not taught how to identify verbs from adjectives, how can you test that? So, but at the time of testing, those instructional objectives are renamed as action verbs. You see, this is the very rough diagram that shows the structure of a question item, nature of a question item, function of a question item, and how it works when framed in a test and administered to a student or a group of students. And what is the importance of action verbs is that action verbs make mental faculties, the same knowledge, understanding, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, etc., observable. And once anything is observable, then only it is measurable. That we know very well. What is observable is measurable. Now you see, content makes a question item functional. Without any content, question item is dead. Without any, no question can be framed without any content. Right? If it is only mere a design. So content makes question item functional. Action verb makes question item effective. And what happens is, when question is projected through any mode, written or oral mode, it hits the mind of the student, and like a missile, and when missile hits the target, the big explosion. Nowadays, every time, night time, they will show our missiles, their missiles. But missiles function is the same. It will be projected, it will hit the target, there a big explosion will take place. And as a result of that explosion, knowledge, understanding, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation abilities of a student, they come out of his or her mind and are scattered on the piece of paper. Or if it is a verbal test, it comes out in the form of speech sounds. And then we can observe that. We can see that written answer, written response that contains his or her knowledge, understanding, analysis, synthesis, and all that things. We can see that, we can show to the student himself. Earlier, copybooks were returned. I don't know what is the practice nowadays. In our places, if a student gets lower marks, his father will come with a mortar. What is that? A stick. That how come I send him daily? Then we can show him that you see his answers. So it is action verbs that make a question effective. And by the virtue of that action verbs, the hidden abilities, hidden skills, hidden inside the mind and heart of the student are exploded, are revealed. And once anything is revealed, it is recorded, and now it is observable. Now it can be measured. So this is what the whole idea is. So list of action verbs as per educational objectives. We are going to write the question items. We have to write knowledge-based questions, comprehension-based questions, and application-based questions. At least the 3 levels should be covered, because our mastery teaching learning model, this model, emphasis is on these 3 skills. But it is up to you. If you like, if you wish, you can prepare questions for higher Orderability is also, that is analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So one comprehension, action verbs. What kind of action verbs should be used, can be used to write a comprehension-based questions that we have discussed, but again we will repeat the same thing. List of action verbs as per the educational objectives. Knowledge. If you want to write a knowledge-based question, please use the action verbs. Action verbs means give the activities. Question is nothing but an activity. Students are, you see, questions they say are maybe of two types. It can be an imperative sentence. Shed light, explain karo. Saprasanga vyakhya karo. This is imperative sentence. This is activity, or an interrogative sentence. So what makes it imperative is action verbs. If any action, if a boy came, he is standing, you are also sleeping. No, you are not telling to do him anything. Then nothing will happen. So action verbs means activities. So knowledge questions should be written by using these kind of action verbs. Identify, list, name, select. You can translate into Kannada. We are translating into Hindi because the source material is available in English. They used to think in English and write in English. So identify, list, name, select, define, describe, state, outline, match, reproduce, etc. are the action verbs to be used to write a knowledge-based question. Then translate, explain, defend, convert, distinguish, estimate, generalize, give example, infer, predict, summarize, rewrite, paraphrase, etc. are the action verbs to be used, should be used, may be used to write a comprehension-based question. Then application question: change, break, compute, show, demonstrate, manipulate, make, modify, operate, prepare, produce, assemble, use, solve, etc. And that day also, day before study, I have mentioned with folded hand that overlapping qualities are there, interface is there, because these all activities function combined together. You cannot say that now it is knowledge level is functioning. Now it has come to the comprehension level. You cannot say like this. So, but for the sake of understanding, we must discriminate and bifurcate one thing from another thing. So that's why overlapping quality will be always there. You have to keep in mind. Analysis. And one thing I will also mention that my guru, Professor Ponsubaya, in this line. Nowadays, only one guru was there. Even old days also, Rama was having two gurus. Vishwamitra and Vasishtha. Krishna was having only one guru, that is Sandipan. All the Pandavas and Kauravas, 106.
Yeah, 106.
Okay, they were having, also two gurus were there. Dronacharya was the guru and Kripacharya was the full guru. So, and nowadays many metric guru, Beda, intermediate guru, so research guru. So this line guru, evaluation guru, he used to say that question item writing is a science as well as an art also. And all kinds of discussions, manuals, rules, regulations, frameworks, structures, instructions are associated with the science part of item writing. As far as art part of science item writing is concerned, only you can do that. The imagination, the innovative ideas, that cannot be taught. Analysis, breakdown, these are the action verbs to be used to write an analysis-based question. And if these words are used, action verbs are used, one thing I can take you to guarantee that in the first instance, that question may be declared as a valid question. It is a different thing that after strict scrutiny, after administering that question inside a test, it may declare an invalid. But in the first instance, pre-validation team will certainly say that this, yes, this is the analysis question because these action verbs are used. So break down, differentiate, discriminate, illustrate, relate, establish, prove, etc. Synthesis, I said that synthesis is the reverse osmosis of analysis. Ulta analysis is synthesis. So if you say breakdown, then synthesis will say categorize. You see, every action verb of analysis and synthesis are just adverse to each other. Means majority of them. Break down, differentiate, discriminate, illustrate, relate, establish, prove. Now synthesis says categorize, combine. They say breakdown. It will say combine, compose, create, design, plan, reconstruct, etc. Evaluation, apprise, compare, conclude, contrast, criticize, justify, judge, value, decide, etc. are the action verbs. Prescribed, this is not I am giving from my side, what I have done, no. I have tried my best to avoid the repetitions and overlappings. There are plenty, list is very long, but my contribution, if it can be taken as contribution, is that I have tried to what is that, consolidate the things. Otherwise, these are things already available. So the job of a teacher evaluator is to convert educational objectives into instructional objectives at the time of teaching and convert instructional objectives into action verbs. This is may have been perhaps the third step while framing the question at the time of testing. Now, friends, we will discuss about the relationship between item types, skills to be tested, and action verbs. Is obvious, it is there. We have to know them, we have to show them. You see, item types, skills to be tested, and action verbs. All kinds of objective type questions are suitable to check, test lower order skills only. And when we say lower order skills, knowledge, understanding, and application comes. And let me share that application is a disputed area. A section of experts say that application is a higher order skill. Another section says that no, it is not a higher order skill. It is a lower order skill because application can be done by imitation also. And this is what the learning starts. If take for example singing, dancing, the teacher will dance, the student will see and repeat the action. So application can be done by mere imitation. For that, higher mental faculties are not needed. So anyway, I have said that there is a dispute. Now you are free. You can apply your own mind. You can for application you can take it as a higher order or take it as a lower order. These three, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, are no doubt, without any what is that, debate, they are the higher order skills of mental what is that, cognitive behavior of a learner. And all kinds of subjective type questions are suitable to check higher order skills of learners' behavior. But here some two exceptions are also there. In objective category, two item types, mainly one, multiple choice, because multiple facet, and someone will discuss this.
Item types.
I am just opening the window. I am not going to enter the room, right? So the theory says that all kind of objective type questions are suitable to check lower order skills only. But the exception is that multiple choice. But the condition is that it should be designed in such a way. If designed in such a way, multiple choice questions can be used to check higher order skills also. And this is what you can see in the NET, SLATE, and all kind of higher level examinations. A is true, B is false. A and B both are true. Neither is true. That way it is, but it has its own problems. We will not discuss that. It has its own problems. While doing this, we violate the basic instructions to design a multiple choice, but that is a different story. But it is generally accepted that multiple choice can be used, and multiple facet is nothing but a cluster of multiple choice questions. The same way, a simple question in completion. Completion means fill up the blank. Although because of their nature that they function on production level, they come under supply type, because to answer them, the student has to supply the answer from his or her side. So they are listed under subjective category. But the fact is that these two poor members, simple question where answer is of one word and maximum one sentence, and fill up the blanks, one or two words are missing in a sentence, a student has to fill. Although they belong to the subjective category, that is known as suitable to check higher order skills, but in practice they are suitable to check lower order skills only. So this we have discussed. And so item types are associated with skills to be tested. Means skills means listed in under taxonomy. We can convert it into instructional objectives. Further, we will convert into its action verbs. That is our job. And the action verbs, instead of repeating, I have just concepts. Hence, it can be repeated that teaching materials, we should come back to our main topic, teaching materials should be evaluated with reference to the objectives stated in the syllabus document. A teacher or his or her teaching should be evaluated with reference to the instructional objectives stated in the lesson, chapter, or text. This is one way of evaluating. You see, our policy document, National Education Policy, recently, 2020, they have a separate chapter for teachers. I'm sure you must have seen and gone through. It said, teacher should not keep himself, herself confined to his or her own subject, knowledge of his or her own subject, but they should be able to understand and identify the special needs of their students. This can become a criteria to evaluate a teacher. That if he or she is confined to his or her own subject only, or we are possessing the capacity to identify the special needs of the teachers. Next sentence says that teachers should be equipped with the quality of leadership quality and management skills. This can also become a criteria to evaluate a teacher. He should be modern in his thoughts. हिंदी में कहते हैं गए गुजरे जमाने की सोच लेकर. So the point is that to evaluate anything, we have to have a common reference point. That reference points are plenty. We can derive from inside the teaching material. We can take from text and context. You know very well. Every text has its context. So it can be taken from context. It can be taken from text. It can be taken from a third party. That is taxonomy of educational objectives, external criteria. Although the context also falls under external criteria. So, and here we are in a safe position. We are fortunate that a ready-made document like taxonomy is there. So why to say go for milking a goat if a cow is there? The same teaching will be. And the purpose of evaluation is not finding faults. Purpose of evaluation is to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the process or product and to rectify them. It is not for finding faults. If anything went wrong, that should be located first, that should be identified, that, oh, this creates problem, this went wrong, and to rectify that. In other words, evaluation is meant for quality maintenance. No other objective of education evaluation should be there, and it is not there. Quality maintenance, because someone has said that no quality can be assured where there is no proper evaluation. So evaluation is not for fault finding, not for blaming. It is to maintain quality. Because without quality, the very purpose of the whole exercise is defeated. If quality is not maintained, the very purpose of the whole exercise, all kind of expenses, budgets, working days, man hours go waste if quality is not maintained, and no quality can be maintained where there is no proper evaluation. So this is the compulsion we should go, and we used to go for evaluation. This is one thing that I have suggested, and everyone should suggest that this is very delicate job. Evaluation itself is a delicate job, but evaluating teaching and evaluating teaching material is more delicate. So it should be undertaken by some kind of expert people, some group of expert people, some expert agencies who have the expertise, and they are equipped and they have experience to do so. And I will suggest my own organization, because we have been doing this all subject, not subject, all language, at least language and literature and textbooks we have of the Indian organizations or foreign organizations. We have been evaluating them. So we consider ourselves competent to do this. Something, this is concluding, I think, last but one, that virtues of a good teacher, because the evaluation of teaching is somehow the evaluation of teachers also, because without teaching, in our teaching, this mastery learning model, learning cannot take place. So when I started searching, I found 70 types of virtues, because people don't they don't have to follow, no, they have to make lists. So you add the virtue, but by searching and by consolidating, I have zeroed on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 virtues that a teacher must possess. That patience, ability to remain calm and cool and composed in spite of provocation. If there is no provocation, everybody is cool and composed. But who is cool and composed in its real sense is that in spite of provocation, if you are able to maintain your composure, then you are only patient. Fairness, treating the students equally. Compassion, caring for the misfortunes of others, especially your students. Kindness, being organized inward and outward. Sense of humor, they say, is also a very important part of teaching process, and teacher must should possess the sense of humor. But I have some exceptions, reservations, that it should be within the very moderate. Otherwise, this effect will go. Especially in the school where kids are there to take care of, like that. But they say that sense of humor is a very important virtue or skill maybe of a teacher. And moderately dressed. In one of the program, one teacher came. He was wearing a t-shirt inside. No, he was wearing a shirt. Over that shirt, he was wearing a t-shirt, and he was not managing his buttons that way. So entering the classroom, half an hour he took to justify that the way it is up to me that in what way I am dressed. So instead of taking his topic, he explained his dress only. So teachers should be moderately dressed. And this we will skip. I think we have completed the talk, and we can sum up that. As a teaching and a process, we evaluated with reference to the instructional objectives stated in the textbook. And the textbook teaching material, mainly textbook, should be evaluated with reference to the instructional objectives stated in the syllabus. Instructional, what is that? The same instructional objectives should be converted into action verbs while testing. And educational objectives stated in the syllabus is nothing but the educational objectives stated in the taxonomy of educational objectives. Thank you very much.